Hey, this is Julian Rosen from Common Sage, and you're listening to The New Scene.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The New Scene. I am your host, Keith, and we are back with another brand new episode. And on the show this week, we have Matt O'Brien from the band No Lights out of San Francisco. They feature members of Kowloon Walled City. Think post-hardcore meets post-punk meets shoegaze. It's a really unique sound. They put out an excellent LP in 2023 called Dream Eraser. And I met Matt when No Lights played out here in New York City a couple years ago. It's an excellent conversation. We talk about the band, we talk about mental health, we talk about sobriety, we cover a lot of topics. And we also have an artist spotlight interview with Emmett Ceglia, who I had the pleasure of meeting recently when my band played a gig with his band, Husbandry. Definitely check out Husbandry. They're a post-hardcore band out of New York City. Emmett is also in a screamo post-hardcore band called Detach the Islands. He's also in Semaphore. He's also in Fluoride. He also does solo electronic music in his project Heavenview. He does it all. And we talked to Emmett about all of his bands and a lot more. It's a great, jam-packed episode, and that's all coming up shortly. But first, here's how you can support The New Scene. Rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have a main channel with full video episodes and a clips channel with clips from select episodes. We have shirts for sale at our store at Death Wish Inc. Pick one up. It's a great way to support the show. And you can follow us on social media at New Scene Pod. Also, don't forget to support Iodine Recordings. The new LP from Hundreds of AU called Life in Parallel is up right now for pre-order. And you can hear the first single, Scorched Earth Harvest, out right now on streaming services. There's also new merch to go along with the new LP. Jerome's Dream have a new track on the Dogs of Hope Benefit for Shelter Animals compilation. Drought just released a new single called Wayfinding. That's from their upcoming LP called Souvenir, which will be out soon on Iodine Recordings. Make sure you pre-order that if you haven't. Her Heads on Fire have a new split 7-inch with Arms Like Roses. That's available in 3 limited colors in the Iodine store, and that's coming to you from Iodine Recordings and Double Helix Records. Love Letter have European tour dates that just kicked off. Make sure you check them out if you're over there. And the new LP from Modern Life is War, called Life on the Moon, is out right now. And don't forget to pre-order the new LP from the Casket Lottery called Feel the Teeth. For more information, head to iodinerecordings.com, sign up for the newsletter, and you can follow the label on Instagram at Iodine Recordings. And I want to say thank you to Austin Keane and Mind Over Matter Records for sponsoring The New Scene for the months of May and June. Here's some updates from Mind Over Matter Records. Mind Over Matter Records is an independent record label founded and run by Austin Keane, and it's home to tons of great artists like Oriska, Moraine, Mission to Sleep, Dad Hats, Brett Detar, Zayo, Evergreen Terrace, and a ton more. Make sure you pick up the self-titled LP from Oriska. Oriska is blackened post-metal out of North Dakota. The first pressing sold out, but there's a second pressing available right now via Death Wish Inc. and Mind Over Matter Records. Make sure you pick up A Spark or the End. That's the new LP from Mission to Sleep. They're a heavy post-gaze band out of Boston. If you like bands like Psalm, you will love Mission to Sleep. And the debut EP from my band, Memory Entry, is available right now via Mind Over Matter Records. There's 2 copies left of the Mind Over Matter variant in their store, and we put up the last remaining copies of the sold-out Iodine Recordings variant. That's also in the Mind Over Matter Records store. Grab one before they're gone for good. Head to mindovermatterrecords.com, check out the store, check out the merch, and you can follow the label on Instagram at MOM Records. All right, so first up, we're going to talk to Matt O'Brien from No Lights, and right after that, we'll be talking to Emmett Ceglia from Husbandry and Detach the Islands. Enjoy. All right, we are here now with Matt O'Brien. Matt, Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Keith. It's good to see you.
Yes, it's good to see you. It's good to have you here, Matt. Your band, No Lights, got onto my radar recently, and we put out an LP called Dream Eraser in 2023, which I love and which I hope a lot of people are checking out. And we're going to talk about all of that. We're going to talk about everything, Matt. But first, I want to ask you, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Yeah, I had a couple consecutive days off, so just kind of able to catch up on, domestic stuff. I'm engaged, just hanging out with the lady and kind of recharging before I go back to work. We have a show coming up on Saturday, so I got some practice time in. No complaints. It's good. The weather's good here. It's chill.
Where do you live? In San Francisco?
Yeah, I'm up in Twin Peaks, which is kind of like, are you familiar with the radio tower? When you look at the backdrop of the city. Anyway, I'm basically up on a big hill. And it can get pretty foggy up here, but it's like a nice sunny day, which is cool.
I love it. I love San Francisco. I always say it. If I had to live anywhere else besides here in Brooklyn, I would want it to be there.
Really? Yeah. I mean, I suppose as a New Yorker, you could probably appreciate it just because it's incredibly hard to sustain yourself here. Yeah. So it's interesting that you would come here coming from New York, because it's, I don't know, maybe this is the second most expensive place to try to live.
Yeah. Wherever I go, I want to make it as difficult as possible for myself. So I figured I could achieve that in San Francisco.
You definitely could. Yes.
Well, no, my measurement is, okay, I used to travel constantly for work, right? And I spent a week in San Francisco at an account. Now, I was always in a rush to get home, to New York and do my thing. I was actually sad when I was leaving San Francisco. So that's the first time that ever happened. So I think that means something.
It's a special place. It's not without its problems, like most major cities. I mean, there's some problems, but it is still a really beautiful place, a really dynamic place. I mean, for how small it is, it's super dense. You drive, 100 feet and you're in a different neighborhood, totally different feel. And I really love it. I grew up on the East Coast. I'm not from here originally, but I've been here over 20 years. So I guess I must like a little bit.
You said you're engaged. Now, your fiance, was she with you when I met you at your show out here?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, that was Diana. Yeah, that was what was it, outside the Mercury Lounge there?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
that's her. Yeah, we got engaged over the holiday, so that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, are you ready for that?
I think so. I definitely consider myself to be a late bloomer. I'm 43, but I feel like I'm finally starting to, I don't know, I guess purge that selfishness, I guess, for a better lack of a better word. You know what I mean? I definitely never romanticized doing any of that conventional stuff, getting married or having a family. But I don't know. I can kind of see it now. Maybe I just need to meet the right person. That and do several years of therapy.
Yeah, you sound pretty similar to me. Okay. I didn't even start thinking about that stuff until recently, because when I was young, it was just like, what's next? What's next? What's next? I can't commit. I'll never get married. I'll never have kids, any of that stuff. But in the last 3 years, I'd say I was like, maybe. Never say never, right?
Yeah, I think my values have definitely changed as I've gotten older. And I think it is, some of it just is this selfishness. I feel like most of my adult life, I'm not saying I was a bad guy or anything, but it was very much like, what am I going to do next? Just carving out like some, inference of what it is to be an adult, I guess, you know what I mean? Like almost like a childhood, like sketch of what I think, it's all about. And, chasing, sensory pleasures and this and that. And, I don't know, something kind of has changed or shifted in the past few years, where I'm like, it's more about like, well, what's good for this other person? Maybe it's not all about me, Yeah.
At this point, I'm kind of sick of me. I need to introduce something else.
Yeah, for sure.
You said several years of therapy. Now you're sober too, right?
I am sober. Yeah, that's right. I forgot. You are a fellow sober guy as well.
Yes, for quite a while now. How long have you been?
A long time. I quit drinking when I was 21, and like I said.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's been a long time. But Yeah, still, it's still like a long walk out of the woods. I don't know if you can relate to that. You know what I mean? I think, yeah, I changed my life, in a big way very early, but I still had a lot of the same behaviors that one would have when they're in the throes of addiction, and it took me a long time to kind of, rewire some of that stuff. But hey, man, maybe that it's the journey, right?
Exactly. Now, yes, I put everything down. I don't like to say when exactly for professional reasons, but let's say a long time now. And when
Sure.
I did that, there's, I'm involved in 12 steps. So there's constant work that you do, service work, writing work, talking to people work, helping other people work. And I would say not until 5 years into that did I even begin to unravel everything and start to think differently and all of that. And now, more than 5 years into that, yeah, it's just like more and more layers, right? Things change a lot. You discover a lot more. You change a lot, or I have at least. What was the process like for you? I mean, you mentioned therapy. What other kind of stuff did you do, and what did you discover?
Uh, you know, um, I can't say, it's not really a linear discovery, right? You know what I mean? I think like the way it was for me is, I quit drinking and moved all the way across the country to here. And I don't want to say that, I didn't do any personal growth, but I think because I was so young, my attitude at the time was just kind of like, well, look, I'm not drinking, but I'm going to do whatever the hell I want. So there was still a lot of like immaturity there. And, and plus you're not really fully online at that age. I mean, like, some are more mature than others, but when I was, my entire 20s, I didn't really give a fuck about anything except for playing punk rock. I always had a job, chasing girls, all that stuff. And yeah, just like I said, kind of bouncing from one sensory pleasure to the next, sans, drugs and alcohol. And it wasn't until I got in my 30s to where I even considered having any kind of a plan in life. You know what I mean? I think, and that's not even unique to, being sober. I think like, just naturally there's these checkpoints in your life. I mean, I think one of them happens when you get in your 30s and another one happens when you get in your 40s. When I got my 30s, that's when I started to even consider doing therapy and like getting a career and all that. But yeah, I mean, it's been the slow burn. I mean, you name an issue, like I had a shrink, he worded it. I don't know if it's a crude way to say, but he said he has problems with the pink and the green, meaning money and women. He throughout his life, he found himself being really maladjusted around those two issues. So those two issues for me, relationships and just figuring out how to be like a normal, sustaining human, are probably my two biggest, issues that have made the most progress. And those were like huge sticking points for me throughout my life. And yeah, I like to think that I've come a long way from where I started, but I mean, it's a process, man. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it definitely wasn't like an overnight transformation for me, but yeah, therapy is huge. Meditation is huge. Service, doing nice things for others, all that stuff, definitely works.
Yeah, I have a lot of similarities to you because I'm the same age as you and a similar trajectory too. In my 20s, all I cared about was partying and hanging out. Pretty close to when I hit 30, I was like, I got to start taking a career seriously and started working on that. And then, I don't know, halfway through my 30s, I really started taking life more seriously with therapy and all that kind of stuff. So you lived on the East Coast, where?
Yeah, so I grew up in Holyoke, Massachusetts, which is I guess a small city, small town, small city. It feels more like a small town when I go back now, but it's the city of Holyoke. So
I have a friend. Yeah, I have a friend who lives there. I've actually heard of that. You ever hear of the band Scurvy? It's a pirate-themed hardcore band.
Yes, I remember. I think I remember them. Is it what's the guy's name? I don't know him personally. Is it Josh Gurdon?
Yes, Josh I've met, and Brendan the singer I know. Those guys lived there or live there. I forget which. Yeah.
I don't know them personally, but like probably like 2 degrees of separation. I think they, mutual friends maybe. I think My friend Jamie, who used to play in that band, Death Threat, might know those guys. I almost think about Holyoke as being kind of like it's almost like a micro Detroit in the sense that back in the day it was all paper mills. So and then all that industry dissolved or got shipped overseas, and then kind of this I don't know, lower middle class void is kind of what is left there. You know what I mean? Not a super culturally vibrant place. It's just I just think about it as being very, very blue collar. So growing up there, I would go to like Northampton and Amherst, which are the neighboring college towns. That's where all the shows and all that culture was at. So that's my roots,
And what is your relationship with, let's say, the world of punk? I mean, where did you come in? What were you listening to? What kind of bands grabbed you? What was going on?
I was pretty just ravenous for music from a young age. So it was basically trying to think of the progression. So I would say the first heavy music I got into was I had this neighbor who, I was probably like, I don't know, 11 or 10. I had a neighbor who was into like Metallica and Anthrax and all that stuff. And he made me a cassette tape of that stuff. And that was kind of my introduction to heavy music. It's that pre-internet phase. So it's not like this, linear discovery of music. So it was like, you had 120 minutes and Headbangers Ball on MTV. That was an outlet. My best friend, his dad had this really funky record collection. His dad was like this old biker dude, and he had Sandinista, and he had like Boomtown Rats and like a lot of this really funky 70s stuff. I didn't start going to shows until I want to say it was maybe like the summer before 8th grade. I found out about this show. I didn't even really know what I was going to, but the local college, community college radio station, had this host of DJs like any other local college. And I stumbled upon this hardcore radio show, and they were advertising a show, and the bands were Grimlock, Polyglot, who was from Rhode Island. I can't remember the rest, but it was at this place, Pearl Street Nightclub. So that was my first actual show. And I just kind of my mom dropped me off, single parent, just kind of strong armed mom into bringing me to this show. That's where I actually discovered like the actual underground culture. But I think as soon as I heard, heavy music, it's like I always was kind of like reaching for like that more extreme or more obscure thing. And tape trading, people would make you a mixtape. But I wasn't like one of those kids that was like, oh, I only listen to hardcore. I mean, I was pretty just like insatiable for music. So I went to that one show, and then, I got a bunch of flyers for other shows. Not all of them were heavy music. It would be like a street punk show or a ska show. And I feel like the 90s was that last bastion where people weren't so jaded, where, just finding content in general was so precious. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, oh, 10 different people in a band. It was like this, well, for one, it was a character building search for music, and then you were really appreciative to find it. So I would go to any shows. I went to that venue is probably like the most consistent place that I went in my early teens, Pearl Street. And I saw all kinds of stuff there, dude. I saw like Napalm Death with Sheer Terror. I got to see Warzone with Rabies. All kinds of stuff, the Oi bands would come through. I got to see The Business there. What else was going on? Early Dropkick Murphys, like when they, first released that Boys in the Docks EP. Definitely loved all the chaotic hardcore bands like, Dead Guy and Converge and Coalesce. But yeah, man, I always loved music. I definitely was attracted to, more subversive, heavy stuff. But like, I've always just been a huge fan of just music in general. So, I saw all kinds of different stuff.
Nice. When did you start? You play guitar, right?
Yeah, I started with bass. That was my first instrument. Bass was the instrument that I really like woodshedded and was just fixated on becoming very proficient at. Guitar was always like this kind of peripheral thing that was just songwriting. So my guitar style, I didn't go through like the Chuck Berry portal and like, I was never formally taught guitar. I think guitar was more of like a self-discovery, where bass was like, that was my primary instrument. So as I learned guitar, I think a lot of my ideas around it were maybe a little primitive just because it wasn't my primary instrument. It was just something that I did on the side for fun. So most of the bands that I played in early on, I was the bass player.
How old were you when you started playing in bands?
So I started playing the bass. I think I want to say I was about 12. And by like 15, 16, I was trying to start like my first demo bands, just with kids around the neighborhood. It was pretty sparse. I remember being extraordinarily challenging at that age and in that area. I mean, there was not like this huge, vibrant, music scene, definitely not in Holyoke anyway. But yeah, right around like 15, 16, just demo bands and, played in just a slew of demo bands like throughout high school. After high school, I was in a street punk band for a little bit, but nothing like super serious, like nothing where I did any touring. It was just all regional shows and things like that.
What about, now we know you moved to San Francisco when you were 21 because you mentioned that, and I want to talk about that, but what was going on with you after high school? Did you want to go to college? Did you want to try to pursue music full time? Like, did you think about the future at all? What was going on with you?
At that time, I really didn't have much direction in life, man. You know what I mean? Like, so, I mean, if you figure I quit drinking at 21, you just start doing the math. So by like late high school and just after high school, it's kind of a mess. It was just kind of all over the place. So I definitely, music was always a priority. And I think I explored like taking some music classes at, the community college, but I was just so out of my mind, dude. And like by the end, by, whatever, '02, I was, like living in my car. So that was like pretty much the end of the road for me. You know what I mean? I was a fucked up kid. You know what I mean? It is what it is. So by that time, things were, kind of starting to bottom out in terms of what I consider almost like my old life. A lot of this stuff, when I'm thinking about it, it almost sounds like a stranger in some ways because, it was so out of control. But at that point, I mean, I had aspirations. I always wanted to play in bands. I don't think I ever really had an ambition or an expectation of monetizing my art, but I knew I wanted to do it in a more serious way. And I wanted to hopefully connect with other people that felt the same way I did. So those were my aspirations, but that didn't come until after I got sober and moved out of Western Mass, moved out here.
When you quit drinking, was there a specific moment or anything where you were just like, I have to stop? And were you able to just stop like that? Were there any, relapses or bumps along the way?
Well, I mean, I guess there was relapses previous to when I actually got sober. But the event, I mean, so I was living in my car and then the car broke down. And then so I was kind of like that. I feel like was almost like the symbolic kind of end of the line thing. I always think about it as like being the actual end. And then it's just the funniest thing. It was winter in Massachusetts, and I'm sitting in this broken down. I don't even remember what car it was. It might have been, I mean, something really shitty like an '86 Corsica. So I'm sitting in this car, and then an acquaintance from high school drove by, and he was a tow truck driver, quite serendipitously. And I mean, I didn't even know this guy super well, but he's hey man, he picks me up, and I hop in with him, and I think he offered me a cigarette or whatever, and I'm like, hey man, I don't even have a place to live right now. And he's like, oh dude, just come live with us, so funny the way things transpire when you're that young, you know, and you didn't even skip a beat. I'm like, oh, okay. So I was basically crashing on the couch of, you know, acquaintances, I guess. And that's when I started to, like, you know, get into the 12 steps and try to take it seriously. But yeah, without going, you know, too deep into like the gritty, dark, you know, corners of where things were at. I mean, that was pretty much it. It was like the threat of I guess long-term homelessness, you know. I mean, those were the circumstances. I think it's hard to really talk about that stuff because you know, a lot of it's just really intangible, right? I mean, like, what does it mean to hit a bottom? I mean, it's an abstract idea, you know. For some people, you know, some people can live on the street for 20 years, you know what I mean, and it doesn't phase them. And then for somebody else, you know, that's the end of the line, you know what I mean. That it's more about, I think, how I felt at that time. You know, that was really the more significant thing, you know what I mean. What was going on was you know, secondary to just, yeah, I mean, it just wasn't sustainable, you know what I mean. Like yeah, I mean, just in a dark place.
That makes sense, because when I stopped, there were a million times I tried to stop. There were a couple weeks prior to actually stopping, I tried to stop again and couldn't. But I'll just never forget, there was just this moment where I was in my room and I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
You know, I could have kept going. I could have kept going indefinitely, months, years, who knows? But it was just a feeling like I cannot sustain this anymore. It is time to stop.
Yeah, I think, you know, intuitively, even, you know, with that primitive young brain, I knew that I was flirting with death. You know what I mean? It was just like, yeah, I mean, yeah, I was, you know, I'd come out of a blackout and I was, you know, driving, you know, 80 miles an hour, you know, on the freeway in like Connecticut. And, you know, I didn't know why I was there, kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I do know what you mean. And that is not a good thing.
No, it's not. No. Stay in school, kids.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
So how did you settle on San Francisco? How did you decide to move out there?
I had this idea, you know, I think growing up in a place that was as like blue collar and meat and potatoes, and by my estimation, it just didn't seem like this place that really fostered, like, you know, kind of a creative mindset. I think I had this idealized notion of what, you know, that place would be for me, you know, the ideal place. I just figured San Francisco, like based on like maybe like, you know, stuff I had seen on TV, it seemed like a place that I would really enjoy. I had never visited, it didn't have the means to visit. So it was just an interesting sequence of events. I was dating a girl at the time, and I used to always talk about how I wanted to come here. She moved here to go to art school. I was crashing on the couch of acquaintances. Those acquaintances were like, hey, we're going to move to Colorado, and do you want to come with us? And so I kind of was like, sure, I'll go somewhere, you know, still not a lot of direction. And then long story short, the girl that I was dating, you know, we kind of split up. She ended up moving here. And then later on, like 7 months after that, I moved here to be with her. Relationship did not work out, but I instantly kind of just fell in love with it. I have a vivid memory of coming up an escalator at Civic Center in the city, and city's actually changed quite a bit in the last 20 years. But at the time, it almost had this like, it almost felt like almost like a Lou Reed kind of New York, you know, gritty feel to it. I remember walking down Market Street, and, you know, it's just like, you know, you use stereo shops and strip clubs, and just and like there's this cool grit to it. Instantly connected with it, thought it was cool. I lived in the Tenderloin for my first 4 years, which not the best neighborhood, but I loved it, man. It was just so cool. It was a fresh beginning. And then when I moved here, I just like, you know, it was just like I hit the ground running, you know what I mean? For me, at least. I mean, on paper, I was just a guy, you know, working a job and playing in bands. But at the time, it was really amazing to me. I thought I had just totally made it, you know, just being able to live here, have an apartment, you know, I was playing in bands. I mean, I was super content with just doing that for, I mean, a good 10 years, you know what I mean? Just having punk rock experiences, playing in bands here, meeting people, going to shows. I discovered 924 Gilman, which I don't know if you've had the pleasure of going to 924 Gilman. That's kind of, they call it like the CBGBs of the West. Really rad venue in Berkeley. And it was a really good time for me, and I just never left.
Yeah, I have not been to Gilman yet, but hopefully one day. The first time I visited San Francisco, I was on tour with a friend's band in 2002, and they played the Pound. Did you ever go to that place?
Yeah, that was out by the Bayview. I do remember the Pound. I saw some good shows there. Who did I see at the Pound? Terror, Agnostic Front. I saw them at the Pound. Trying to think of what else. They had a couple like large outdoor shows. When Danzig first came back and was doing Misfit songs with Doyle, they had that at the Pound. I remember that was a really killer show. But that was a cool spot. Yeah, I do remember it.
Yeah, that was 2002. The next time I came back was 2014, I think. And I remember being at Civic Center, coming up that same escalator you're talking about, and I was shocked how out in the open everything was. There was people just giving each other needles, drugs, people shooting up everywhere. And I was like, oh my God, it's not even like this in New York City. This is crazy. It's not even like that in most of Philadelphia, just select sections.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we touched on it early in the conversation. I mean, I love it here. I love just go have a profound love for the city. I actually work for the city now. So I'm pretty dug in. I think it's an amazing place, but it is not without its problems. I mean, definitely has a huge issue with chronic homeless, unhoused folks with drug addiction or mental illness or both. I mean, it's a very real part of the city. You know what I mean? It's a thing.
What do you do for the city? Can you say?
So I'm a fireman. I'm a firefighter here in the city. I actually work it's oddly enough, I work in that same neighborhood. I work in the Tenderloin, not too far from Civic Center. So I kind of, like life is a circle, I guess. Right. So I'm back where I started when I first moved to San Francisco. Although I'm not like working at a plant store anymore. I work at the fire department, and it's great, man. It's the best job in the world.
Wow. How long have you been doing that?
It'll be 8 years in September.
Wow. How did you decide on that? And is the physical training and everything as rigorous as they say?
So I think I always kind of had a crush on that job. I don't think I was ready to pursue it for, I don't know, maybe it was a self-esteem thing or something like that. But like I said, I mean, my 20s, I played in a bunch of different bands. And I was just working as a carpenter actually for most of that time. And, I think discovering the trades, I started to look at other blue collar jobs and consider if I had, would ever made a change, what would I want to do? And I always thought it was the coolest profession ever. I can think of a couple instances where I randomly met a few firefighters and I found myself just kind of like transfixed and like, how'd you get into that? You know what I mean? And just like, it just seemed like something that was like really unattainable. And then I did a little bit of research on it, and it was, I don't know if it still is, but it was highly competitive. When I got into it, I remember being on a civil service list with like 10,000 people. Had like, there was a girl I dated for, date is even a too strong word. We hung out a couple times and we were friends, but she was a paramedic in Oakland. And I think I floated the idea. This was like when I was, trying to decide what I was going to do. And I was like, I think I've been thinking about maybe pursuing a career in firefighting. And then I think she was just kind of like, oh yeah, I know a million firefighters. You'd be great at it. You should just do it. And, that was like a little nudge. And then actually I was still playing in Early Graves at the time. And we did a string of shows with the band Narrows. It was Dave Verellen from Botch.
Yeah. Great band.
Great band. So yeah, it was Early Graves, Narrows, and it might've been that band from San Diego. Anyway, that dude, Dave, who I haven't seen since. I know Kowloon did some shows with Botch, but I haven't actually run into him since. But I think I floated the idea by him because he was an actual firefighter, and he kind of like lit up super posy about it. It was like, oh, dude, you should do it. It's the best thing I ever did. And so that made an impression. And then once I started to take the classes, so I was working as a carpenter and I began taking classes at night, it went from an interest to an obsession pretty fast. I mean, once I got my EMT license and started taking the fire science classes, and, they were putting on like, gritty, VHS tapes of like, FDNY from the 80s. And it just got its hooks in me pretty quick. I did a couple ride alongs, and the more I found out about it, like I said, it went from being an interest to an obsession. And, I'm lucky. I mean, my inspiration around it has never subsided. And like I said, I'll be 8 years in September. So I'm just happy to have a job that I really enjoy doing, because most of my life previous to being in the fire service was characterized where it was just like everything in life was just this rude interruption in between me trying to just do music and do the things I really wanted to do. It was really how it felt. You know what I mean? Every job was just, I have to do this because I have to eat, I have to sustain myself. But it was, it was kind of like a burden.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So I'm very, very lucky. I mean, I have a job now. I mean, it's right up there with music, which is really cool, and it's, like I said, I mean, I never really had any, illusions about trying to monetize my, punk rock, life. It was just something I was very passionate about, but never something that, I don't even think I would be particularly good if I, at trying to monetize. I mean, some people are really great. I mean, to their credits, there's a lot of really great bands, even in the underground where, they have the, the artistic merit and they're really good at the networking and really like conquering, social landscapes. That is just not me. I'm like just a one-on-one kind of guy, so having a job that I really like. And although I do work a lot of hours, I get a fair amount of time off, and I'm still able to do music. I'm super grateful for that.
Yeah, I'm like you. I don't have aspirations of, well, some monetization is okay, but I don't expect to just play music full time or do 3-month world tours or anything like that. But, I have a day job. I work from home. So if I can do that job, and I don't hate the job, so that's good. If I can do my job and use all my PTO for tours to go play shows, fine. That's enough, right?
Yeah, it's great. And then I don't know if you've had this experience, but when just doing early graves, me and Dan were in that together. Dan is the drummer. He also plays in Kowloon, plays in X Everything. He's been definitely my longest running bandmate / friend in playing music. So when we were doing early graves, we would go out for a month or 6 weeks, and I'm really grateful that I had that opportunity. But I don't really feel the need to go out for that long anyway. You know what I mean? I'd rather do a long weekend, fly out, hit, a few major cities, and then come back, skip the driving across the country long ways. You know what I mean? It's so funny, your perspective. Like, I think of some of the bands that are maybe, let's say 2 to 3 tiers up from us in popularity, and they are doing that. I mean, it's a hard life. I mean, being in a van or even a bus, let's say 8 months out of the year. I mean, it's not for everybody. You know what I mean? And it's a lot of, just the touring that I've done. There's a lot of hurry up and wait. You're uprooted, you're away from home. So I'm glad I got to see my country. But I feel like I have a pretty good idea of like the places I want to go or play. And I'd rather just do them, over the course of a weekend rather than, be in a van with 3 other weirdos for a month.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Targeted shows, targeted weekends. It is possible. And I guess a necessity at my age, but who knows? We'll see what happens. So, No Lights. When does it get started? how does it get started? How old are you? How does it come together? What's going on with you? Tell us about it.
So No Lights, it's funny. I still kind of consider it. It always feels like a new band. It still feels like a new band. So when I decided to change careers and become a firefighter, I put music down for like, I don't know, at least 3 or 4 years. And I was just working, doing classes and volunteering. So No Lights is really the product of me getting away from music for a period of time. And once I got hired and the dust began to settle, I began to just very casually write songs, not really even planning to do a band. I was just demoing songs at my apartment. And then, I really wanted to hear him with like live drums just out of curiosity. And so I reached out to Dan, my longtime friend, and we began demoing these songs just at his rehearsal space. And I remember the moment we were listening to, might have been like an early version of Worm's Eye View, one of the songs that's on the tape. And he was like, "Who are you going to get to play drums for this?" And he had already started playing in Kowloon at the time, and I didn't want to like burden him with another band. And I was like, "Do you want to do it?" And he's like, "Sure." So it just, it started as a casual project. And again, I had already done, Early Graves. I was in a band called Grace Alley for a while. And I was really like, I guess, I was in a place where I was like, maybe I'll just kind of like hobby a band in a sense, just casually do it with friends. But that mentality didn't really last for too long, because once we started getting into it and started to write more songs and it started to become more realized, we were like, hey, I think we really have something here. And then he brought in Ian, who plays bass in Kowloon. Ian also played in Redemption 87, a bunch of other bands. So the forming of it happened really quick. The thing I think that took the longest was becoming realized in the sense of like, well, what is our sound? Because when we started the band and I started to write songs, it wasn't like, I wasn't 22 years old. I wasn't like, oh, like, let's try to capitalize on this sound, or like, let's try to like get lumped in with this. It was really just like uninhibited melodic songwriting. I had always played in heavy bands, but I'd always loved this other side of punk rock, this kind of like weird nebulous area of underground music that's almost like, it's almost hard to explain, like stuff like I always reference that song Straight to Hell by The Clash, where you're listening to it and there's something familiar sounding about it, but you don't really know what it is. And it's this kind of like genre bending, uninhibited kind of songwriting that kind of like is its own thing. And so I think that was kind of the idea I had in my mind. So as we started to write songs, we just kind of let it happen. And it was my first time attempting to sing in a band, which was just a journey in and of itself, because I've done only, like guttural hardcore vocals. So trying to discover, how to sing, I don't even think it wasn't until we were recording the 7 inches, which was the second thing that we did, where I began to really discover what my voice was, like, oh, like I'm a baritone, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. You just don't know what you don't know. So I think, the first couple of years was just really about discovery of what we wanted to do. And because we were on our own timeline and we were kind of just beholden to nothing, we took a few years to really develop the sound, which was a lot of fun. And then, he's kind of like an unsung member of the band in a sense, is like everything that we've always recorded has been with Scott Evans, who is the front guy in Kowloon, but he's also a really good engineer and producer. He's got a studio in Oakland. So the recording of all the No Lights material is like, I almost think about it as like, like a shoestring budget of like, but like trying to do like a, an indulgent like 70s recording. Like we get weird in the studio, and that's a cool thing about working with Scott is we like, he's down to experiment. So every time we record, we'll knock down basics, and then it's usually like a week or two of me and Scott like fucking around and re-recording stuff and reamping stuff. So there's definitely two different versions of No Lights. The recorded version is like, it's like a weird studio project. Doesn't necessarily sound like a band playing in a room. And then there's the live band version. So they don't really, they correlate. The songs are the same, but it's definitely two distinct sounds intentionally, admittedly,
Yeah. I remember thinking that because I saw you, and then I went back and listened to the record, and I was like, oh, yeah, this is different. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, recording and playing live is just two separate mediums. You hear a lot of bands talk about like, I want to really capture the live sound. That with this band never really interested me. I'm like, if we want to do that, why don't we just record a live record? You know what I mean? Like, I'd rather do something interesting and weird. And, we'll worry about trying to duplicate it later. That's really always the attitude when we go in the studio. So, I like it. I like that the records and the live performances kind of stand on their own. They're kind of two separate things. It's something that I embrace.
Yeah, I'm getting more into that mindset because I was like, oh, it has to sound exactly like the record, everything the same, or it won't be good, whatever. But no, I've changed parts of songs to things that make more sense to me, that I like better. I think the tones are a little different because I'm using double amps now. So I'm like, no, it's the live, it's going to be what it's going to be. That's it. And plus, we hadn't even played any shows when we were recording. So it's just in progress. It's in development. It's still becoming something.
Yeah, you still, the song continues to, evolve long after you record it. Actually, after you record it and you get away from it, you begin to gain a different perspective on it. And then, things like singing, you find, these different vocal flourishes. It's pretty common, like I said, I embrace it. It's a totally different medium. Listening to music alone in a room versus going to see a band live. It's just a different deal. And then for us, Dan is he's just got a huge drum sound. You know what I mean? It's that like this huge, I don't want to say Bonham because he doesn't sound like Bonham, but this huge, just cacophonous drum sound. So when you see us live, we're playing up against that. Actually, now he's splitting his live drums with a sampler a lot of times, which is a really cool juxtaposition. But that right out of the gate sounds totally different. And like you said, some of the tonality is different. We do live adaptations, like sometimes just playing what you played in the studio. Certain parts don't, lift when they're supposed to lift. So you have to change things, but that's part of the process. I think that those are the parts of being in a band that I really enjoy. You know what I mean? Like I love writing songs. I love rehearsing, creating music, changing it, trying to get better, failing. That's the best part of playing in a band as far as I'm concerned. I even like, the utilitarian stuff. Like, I don't mind loading a van or driving. I like all that stuff. The only part about being in a band that I don't really like is, I guess the business part, the emailing, these days, you have to do a lot. A lot falls on, I guess, the artist in terms of you have to be like your own PR firm, in terms of social media and trying to gain traction. You're forced to think about all these things that you would never consider, like how many Spotify listeners you have and things like that.
I don't like social media. I don't like doing that. And I don't like sitting there while the record is being mixed because I don't know how to do it. So I just have to sit there and wait and then be like, no, or yes. I hopefully I want to learn to do that at some point. I don't know if it'll be possible, but we'll see.
Yeah, I've thought about that. Like if I could do it all again, and I was a little more focused as a young person. Just to have control over every single element of the process would be really cool. Although, for somebody like me who can, be very, just that like shut in guy who just, the guy alone in the room with a guitar, things that get me out in the world and collaborating with other people are generally a good thing. And I love working with Scott. Maybe it's a good thing that I can't mix my own music. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's good sometimes to get another perspective. I think that, we were talking about earlier, what's changed and, what have you learned? One of the things that I've learned through playing music is, if you're around people that you trust and you respect, it's okay to kind of open yourself up and listen to other ideas. Like as soon the moment I bring a song to my friends in the band, I'm almost relinquishing some level of ownership over it. You know what I mean? Like I had my moment of catharsis with it. Now I'm choosing it to bring it into this thing. And, having somebody else with a discerning ear, it can be really, really good. And then, when you think about it and you start researching like all the, the legendary records, there's usually like some producer that's collaborating with an artist. So, I'm definitely more open to sometimes that little 2% change is all it needs to go from being like a good song to a great song, and it takes somebody else to kind of zero in on it.
Yeah, that's something I've opened up to very recently because, here's my thing. All right. In the current lineup of my band right now, I'll bring a part of a song and someone will recommend a rhythm change or wait, let's do this for the intro or what? And I'll stop and I'll think about it. And most of the times they're right. Whatever they're suggesting It makes the song better. So rather than resist it or just be like, no, it has to be this. If what they're I'll try it. I'll always try it. And if it's better, I'll do it. My thing is what happened before was it would be like, I don't like that or no. But there would be no other idea. So it's like, no, you can't just say no. What's your recommendation? What is your idea? Don't just give me no.
Yeah. It's like, maybe that's why I'm ready to, get married to a woman is because, I've spent all this time in my 20s, 30s, learning how to have these relationships with bandmates. And like, it's like, hopefully at some point you figure out how to have that successful marriage with your bandmates. Like I said, if you're playing music with people that you really like and respect and, it's not about, ego flexing or any of that stuff. And everybody's just trying to make the song good. Absolutely. Yeah. It's imperative to keep an open mind to things. So I know the mentality you're talking about because I remember early on playing music, I experienced both ends of that, both being the one that was, shooting down an idea or having an idea shut down, and for really no good reason. And then now I feel like, I guess, it's come full circle because that's one of the things that I really enjoy. You know what I mean? I kind of, I also do my homework too. So, I practice songs and exhaust the music on my own. And, usually when I'm coming to the guys or I'm going to the studio, I've hashed out and I've kind of like run the Rolodex of everything in my psyche. So I'm a little more open to like, hey, what do you think of this? Like, you know what I mean? I've had my time to make it the best that I can make. If somebody else has something else that they can bring, it's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I always show up with a verse and a chorus, and I always need help writing a bridge and an ending. Sure. And together we get it done.
Yeah. Whatever it takes, yeah. Good times, man.
What are some of your influences for No Lights? Because you mentioned you were playing in heavier bands for a long time. What prompted the sound of No Lights, and what is some of the stuff you listen to that influences that sound?
I think it was like those long term guilty pleasures, So, yeah, throughout my life, I mean, I definitely spent a lot of time, like, bumping, Hatebreed demos, but then also like, Echo and the Bunnymen, really liked a lot of like moody, gothy, 80s stuff like The Cure and Morrissey. And then also, I think because of my age growing up in the 90s when the whole grunge thing happened, it was weird. It was like almost, that was almost a guilty pleasure because I feel like when I was an adolescent, in discovering punk rock, there's this notion of like you want to be you want to shut out anything that's mainstream. And so when I was going to my first punk rock shows and getting into hardcore and metal and all these things on the radio, there was this this alternative grunge thing. I actually secretly liked a lot of those bands. And but never really considered playing in a band like that because I was I guess maybe closed-minded at the time. So definitely the 90s alt stuff was definitely somewhere in my psyche when I began to write these songs. When I listen to No Lights, I hear a lot of 80s and 90s stuff, and then I like to think at some point it just becomes its own thing. But yeah, I think the band is really, it's just the sum of its parts. It's like, what does it sound like when somebody who's had these specific experiences sits down and is open to whatever comes out. I think that's really the sound. I mean, it has to do with the stuff that I was exposed to and I was younger in terms of, what was on the radio, what I, discovered through tape trading and stuff like that. It's this weird amalgamy of all those different things. And when I talk to other people about the band, it's always interesting because I feel like our sound, it's really has a lot to do with the point of reference of the listener. Like I've had people say like, oh, you guys sound like, you sound like this band or that band. And I'm like, wow, I never really considered that, I think we sound somewhat unique. Like I definitely think like when I hear my vocals, I think I hear a little bit of like Elvis Costello influence in there. But yeah, I mean, it's just us is uninhibitedly writing songs, and it just depends on the point of reference of the listener. You know what I mean? Like somebody who is, more into pop punk will pick up on like, stuff that's related to that. People who are more from noise rock, they always, people seem to reference things that are pertinent to them. And I've had a lot of different people say that we sound like a lot of different bands. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I think that's a good thing because we get that too. And I think it means it's a unique sound. And yeah, No Lights doesn't sound exactly like one thing to me, which is good because that's what I go for in bands that I'm in nowadays. I read a quote from you with this band, No Lights. I'm more interested in the things you can't really put your finger on. And I like that. That's because at my age now, at 43, I don't want to just be in a hardcore band or just be in an emo band, because then you're limited, right? Like if I'm just in a hardcore band, we're heavy and there has to be a breakdown, and I guess you can only go this far. But that's why I've always really liked more crossover bands, because I feel like there's more options, there's more room to experiment.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, look, I certainly listen to plenty of things that are one thing, and
Same.
Pretty easy to figure out for sure. For my own, band, or I feel like, if I were to do a band like that, or that was just my only thing, I don't know if being disingenuous is the right word, but it's just not really a good fit for me personally, especially like you said, at this age where I want to do something that is sincere and from the heart and that I really believe in. And yeah, you brought up that quote about like, the things you can't quite put your finger on. I guess when I Definitely in terms of words, things that are really nonsensical and non sequitur in terms of like lyrics have always really interested me because I feel like it kind of like it really that outlines what is special about music for me is like this kind of like intangible feeling that like is a real thing, but yeah, you can't quite explain it. I mean, like conveying an overt message, like some bands are really great at it, like an overt political message, and that's fine. But I have always been more interested in that gray area where you're like, what is this feeling? Like, is it melancholy? Is it happy? All I know is it's super emotionally potent, and there's been a lot of bands, or sometimes it's just a song from one band that really like gets into that weird nebulous sound. And I've always been really attracted to it. And I think when I started this band, that was really more the thing that I was going for rather than like, where this band meets this band. Like that really doesn't interest me. Like all our songs, I can honestly say are like really special to me. And the reason that they made the cut is because when I was listening to the bedroom recordings of them, they kind of brought me to that place and they kind of meant something to me that I felt it consistently enough to where I was inspired to like bring it to the guys and make it into a real song. So,
yeah, it's great stuff. And it's not just one sound. I get post-punk vibes, I get shoegaze vibes, I get the alt vibes you're talking about, and different bands will come to mind. And I love Dream Eraser, the 2023 LP, so I encourage everybody to go check that out if you have not heard it yet. Tell us what's coming up. Are we working on new music? Will you be out playing more? Give us the scoop.
Yeah, so right now, the only thing we have a show. This podcast probably won't air until after the show, but we have a show Saturday with it's all friends. It's X Everything, which Dan also plays in. It's band Minus Numbers, our friends in Heavenview. So we're getting ready for just a local show in Oakland. We're toying with the notion of doing an East Coast thing in August. We're trying to figure it out whether it's going to work. But other than that, probably just some regional touring stuff. And we're starting to write songs again. We're starting to think about, what our next recording is going to be. Are we going to do an EP or an LP? So we're starting to write again. And we're just basically focusing on that.
Excellent. Well, I'm looking forward to more. And Matt, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I love the band. It was great to meet you when you were out here. And let me know when you're back. I will come see you again. We will hang.
Likewise, man. Bring a memory entry out here, man.
It's going to happen. It has to.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. We are here now with Emmett Ceglia. Emmett, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Keith.
Yes, it's great to have you here. And you're up to a ton, it looks like. Detach the Islands, Husbandry, Semaphore, Fluoride, Heavenview. I did not know you were in this many bands, but with a drummer like skills that you have, I mean, it just makes sense, right? Because drummers are always in like 5 or 6 bands, if they're good.
Try my best, my man. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yes, there's plenty to talk about, and we will do that. But how are you doing today, this evening?
I'm feeling great, man. I just got rid of all my skinny jeans, all
You
the
did?
Levi's. Yeah, they're all going to the thrift store.
Oh, so it's officially done, huh?
I think so. I didn't know that there was. People keep telling me that there's the fashion trend of the skinny jean is kind of over right now, but
It is.
okay. I was just feeling constricted in a lot of places, so I went to the Carhartt store, broke down, got some regular fitting pants, and I went like, the freedom. I can't even describe it.
Yeah, I never did skinny. I did slim fit, which I still do, but I lost some weight, so my slim fit jeans don't feel slim enough now. And I was like, do I buy a pair smaller? And then I was like, well, no, wait, I guess like the bigger look is in now, so maybe I match up with the trends now. I'll just stick with it.
It's like any trend. If you just wait long enough, you'll be back in.
It'll come back. Did you see that boot cut is back to some degree? That's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
I never thought that would happen.
Yeah. Jeans with flare. people just had to wait. They're just like, all right, it's the 70s. I'm just going to hunker down. No one's going to touch me like fashion wise for 60 years. I'll be back, baby. Trust me. And here we are.
It's going to come back around. So just hang on to whatever you have. Well,
yeah.
Emmett, it's great to have you here. Did you grow up in New York City?
Not in the city. I grew up on Long Island.
Okay.
At first in Nassau County until I was about 10, and then in Suffolk County until college.
Now, here's a question. Here's a debate I got into recently. Is Long Island considered New York City? Or is just Manhattan considered New York City? Like, if I grew up in Queens, I'd say I grew up in New York City. If I grew up on Long Island, I might say I grew up in New York City. What is your take on this?
So Long Island is the geographic feature upon which those 4 counties are set. But culturally, Long Island is Nassau County, Suffolk County. And then Brooklyn and Queens are on Long Island, but they are part of New York City. They're 2 of the 5 boroughs. And then you wouldn't say you're going to Long Island if you're going to Brooklyn. You'd have to get through those 2 to get to Nassau before you are officially, quote unquote, on the island. And then that's where the switch happens.
That makes sense. Wait, is Long Island one of the 5 boroughs or no?
It's Brooklyn and Queens, Manhattan, Staten Island, the Bronx, and then Long Island is, again, like technically Brooklyn, Queens, Nassau, Suffolk.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't say Brooklyn and Queens are Long Island. You would say Nassau and Suffolk are.
Okay. See, I forgot the boroughs for a minute. I'm bad with this stuff, as you can hear. Even with our show at the Windjammer, I kept saying in Brooklyn. And then I'd like be editing the show and I'd be like, it's not in Brooklyn. Damn it. Like,
I know. It's just like that. The 2 avenues away from what you think is Brooklyn, you're just magically in Queens, and it just like happens like that.
Exactly. So you grew up in Long Island. So what was your entry point into the greater world of punk music? Like, what grabbed you? What were you seeing? How did you find it? Tell us about that.
Sure. I think I had a very mainstream entry into things. My favorite band was Green Day for a long time. And while that is a very like surface of the iceberg for what you think of as punk, that's, I think, what got me on, just like ticked me in the direction very gently that I slowly and then very quickly went down. It didn't take too many years before I was listening to Protest the Hero, Slipknot, Dillinger Escape Plan, and then it just kept escalating from there, or getting to keep the iceberg going deeper and deeper into the dark water away from that. And then by the end of high school, it was fully rejecting mainstream like as much as I could.
Sounds like a pretty similar trajectory to mine. What Green Day album did you come in on?
I really wanted Insomniac, and my dad went to go get it for me and then brought home American Idiot by mistake. And I guess I was just happy to have a Green Day record, because I didn't really put up a big fight about it. I was just like, I wanted this, but I got this. I'll listen to this.
Yeah, I'd say Insomniac is still my favorite. That's the one right after Dookie, right?
Yes,
Insomniac?
sir.
Yeah, because it's just like the most raw and just straightforward. I don't know. It's just got this edge to it that I like. And American Idiot, I actually had not been listening to Green Day for a long time, because I was, like you, found hardcore music, was deep into that, and then liked hardcore, emo, post-rock, post-hardcore. I was on that wave, but then American Idiot came out, and I heard the song, and I was like, wait, this is really good. I haven't checked in on these guys in a while, and I really liked that record, American Idiot. I still do.
I think it's their second best album.
Yeah.
Insomniac is my number 1 too. It's like the anti-Dookie.
Exactly. That's why I like it. Yeah.
And when I say I was fully rejecting mainstream by the end of high school, that was what was going on in my own mind, but I had not even really realized how much further away from mainstream you could go. Because to me, that was like, all right, I'm listening to Coheed and Cambria and From First to Last and Say Oh Sin and Dance Gavin Dance. I'm really getting away from mainstream, dude. Like, I'm so far off. And then when I got to college and was exposed to people who were really, really out on the edge. I was like, oh, I have so far to go.
Yeah, it's weird. Like even within this world of music, there are people, they'll post a list of everything they're listening to, and I haven't even heard of one of the bands. And I'm like, wow, there's just like endless worlds of music out there.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. It's one of the most magical parts about music is that it is a never-ending well that just will keep giving the more you give it.
Exactly. So when did you start playing drums? How? Was that the instrument you wanted to start on?
No, I wanted to play guitar, and I was about 5, and my dad just flat out said no. And
Was there a reason or just...
Yeah, he wanted me to learn to play piano so that I could learn to read music. My dad is also a drummer. My uncle is a drummer, but my dad is dyslexic, so he can't read music. It just doesn't compute. So he is an amazing drummer in his own right and is all by ear and can do all of that. But he wanted me to have like a foundation in music that was a little bit more deep than just learning to play tunes on drums. So I played piano for a few years, and then when I could get away from it, I picked up the drums when I was 9. I was doing that in grade school, just like grade school band, snare drum. And then we moved a couple years after that, and we had a basement so we could have all the drums set up all everywhere. His drums, a drum set for me next to it. And then I started taking drum lessons and learning from drum books like Led Zeppelin transcriptions, doing all that. And then that was just like, it kind of snowballed from there.
Did you ever end up learning guitar? Because I know you said you write for Detach the Islands too, right?
That's true. Yeah, I am the songwriter for DTI, but not really. No, I didn't look back. I just went drums like single-mindedly, and then didn't even get a guitar of my own until the pandemic. I inherited one. And then I started kind of plinking and plunking around. But yeah, I was writing music for Detach the Islands for a few years before that already. We had, some music out. And I'm still, this is the way I write everything, is in MIDI. On, MIDI guitars, MIDI bass, everything is like programmed out ahead of time. And then I turn that all into charts, into sheet music. And then everybody learns the music from that. And then usually it translates to real life, but when it doesn't, then that's when the real like collaboration can happen, where we try to figure out how to either retune or change the chords, or just like, you need 7 fingers to play this, dude. We can't do it. Let's make it real for like humans, Wow.
So you're like on the real deal music theory end of things. Like you're charting it out ahead of time.
Exactly. Yeah, I kind of came into writing music backwards. I theorized first and then brought that to life.
So, okay, so when you're doing that, right? Are you playing through an interface, or are you strictly in the software, like charting it out by the notes and stuff that you know?
Yeah, I'm in the software, man. I'm in the matrix doing it. So the guitar chords are on like a MIDI keyboard, and then or if I know what the chord is ahead of time, I'll just punch it in and then kind of take it chunk by chunk from there.
I love that. I didn't even know you could do that. Well, I guess I did, but I never really thought about it,
In terms of doing it for an entire band before anyone picks up their instruments, and it's like a totally whack process. It's crazy, but it is working. So I'm happy that I found a way to express what I wanted to get out there, and that I'm blessed with amazing friends who play in this band who want to realize that vision.
Yeah. So Detach the Islands, did that get started after the pandemic when you started messing around with guitar and all of that?
It actually started a few years before, in 2016. I was in another band called Autocatalytica, which is like a very progressive metal, like Devin Townsend meets Bartok kind of music, really out there. That band was ending, and I wanted to take a shot at a heavy band of my own, write my own music. And I put together some demos. Again, that was all just like chunking it out on a MIDI keyboard. And I showed it to a few friends, and they went, I don't know what this is, but keep going, see where it goes. And just kept, I took that to heart, and I kept writing, and eventually showed it to some more people who went, all right, I want to play this. This is some freaky stuff, dude. Like, let's make it happen. So then it slowly grew from there.
Yeah, I like it a lot. Nice screamo elements, nice hardcore elements. And is there like some synth in there too? I noticed some like layers of different stuff in there.
So thank you. First of all, thank you so much. I appreciate that, man. Yeah, there's a lot in the soup that's going on in there. Not really a lot of other instruments happening, especially on the first album. There's nothing really, but the guitars, bass, drums, vocals. There's pretty much nothing else. On the new album, Highly Magnified History, there's a couple things. I'm playing tubular bells because those were in the studio. I did the drums in. There's a thing called a marxophone, which is like a hammered dulcimer, kind of like freaky deaky little instrument. But no, there's not like pianos going on in the background or like synths reinforcing things. It's pretty much just the instruments.
Okay. But yeah, I highly recommend A Highly Magnified History to everyone. That's the new LP from Detach the Islands that just came out last year. When I was listening to it, I was like, oh, we should play together. We would fit on a bill nicely together.
Dude, that would rule. Thank you so much. I would love that for the future. Let's make that happen.
Yes, we'll get all of our different bands to play with each other on different bills at different venues. It'll be crazy. Husbandry, you drum in as well, and we just played a show together, which was awesome. When did you join that band?
Officially came on to Husbandry 2022.
Okay. How'd you get hooked up with them?
So I've known Jordan, Arnow, Karina, just by way of being in the scene over the years. I've seen a show here, they've come to a show there. But I think the real solidification of meeting them was Semaphore opening for their release show in 2019 for A Port in a Storm. So that kind of like locked everything in. And then over the pandemic, their original drummer left the band, and in 2021, I was walking around Bushwick with my girlfriend, Eliane, and we ran into Jordan and Arnow, I think, who were also just on the street. It was like right when everyone was just starting to come outside, like summertime. We said, oh, we can just go out and like see the world again. Everything's going to be feeling like it's going to start being okay. And so we ran into those guys, and they were like, hey, yeah, our drummer's not in the picture anymore. We're trying to see what's next. And I remember watching them years past and going, I wonder what it would be like to play for these guys, because their music is pretty freaking out there, and it's really cool. And I bet if we teamed up, we could do a lot of damage. And then lo and behold, at the end of the year, we opened up for Moontooth. And then a few months later, we did another show together. And after that, we were like, let's make it official. Let's do this.
Yeah, I was really impressed when I was my first time seeing you guys at our EP release show. When was that? Back in March? Yeah. And there's a lot of intricate stuff going on. It's was it a challenge at all? Was it a challenge for you to get in there and get in the groove of all that?
Definitely. Yeah, man. First of all, the show was fantastic. Thank you for having us and having us be a part of that. It was really, really fun to see you guys play and to just be a part of a room that was so excited to see wacky music and like be just fully immersed in it and like have an audience that really wanted to pay attention and be involved. Husbandry's music is does not come from a headspace that my instincts go towards. They do a lot of things that are like counter to what I would intuitively go into. And I was having to step into Andrew's shoes and kind of like get inside his head as a drummer. So there's a balancing act between figuring out, okay, what's Andrew's thinking here? How are all these grooves going together? Why am I playing in 5 so much? And how can I understand what it feels like to play that all the time? And then what am I going to bring to the table that's going to like bridge the gap between the new music that the band is writing with me and the old music? And how can we seamlessly blend all this together?
There's a new single out there called Drop by Drop, which is awesome. That came out last year. What's the word on a new album or a new release? Is there something upcoming? And can you talk about it?
Definitely. Thanks for listening to Drop, man. Like, I really appreciate that. We are done writing a new record, which is super exciting, and we are going to be recording it this year. It's not that I can't say more. It's just that's all there's fit to print at this moment. It's written. We're getting ready to record it. Hopefully it'll be recorded very soon. Once the music is done being written, I'm kind of like, let's record it tomorrow. Let's go. I'm ready now. So I'm at that point where we're playing the songs live and like making the most final of final tweaks. But if we stepped into a studio tomorrow, we could throw down.
That's got to be exciting, right? I forget what that's like because we recorded our debut EP, which was a whole process and story of itself. Now we're writing the LP. So I'm in the mindset of, wait, can we write an LP? Can I still do this? Will I write something that I like, right? And then we finish a song and I'm like, oh, I can still do it. Good. So do you get like that when you're writing?
A bit, yeah. I think that there's a certain point where one song feels like it's telling you it's finished, but then you're slowly accumulating like another body of work. And I like to think of the album as what's left to say in this group of expressions. I've got about 4 or 5 things now. Does this want to say any more? Is there something missing from the conversation between all these different pieces? And usually they'll let you know. The song likes to let you know when it's done. It likes to let you know when it's said what it's need to say. And then a group of songs, I think, can also say that.
That's a good point. You just have to trust those instincts. Like we'll be working on a new song and then all of a sudden I'm like, it's ready. It's ready. Or if it's same thing, if you're working on an EP, an LP, you know when it's ready. You know when it's time to go record. You know when it's time to move on to the next thing, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you have to be open to listening to that voice that's kind of like ethereally coming through. But if you can, then it's right there. It's ready.
Yeah, like for our LP, I got the concept for it 2 years ago. Back in summer of 2023.
Hell yeah.
And I had a whole track listing before we wrote even one song. And then I was like, wait, how am I going to do this? But then when we write a song, I look at the track listing and I'm like, it's that one. And I just know. Like, so how all right, let's use Detach the Islands as an example. How do you do it? Like, how has it worked in recent times? Or do you just go song by song and then a concept comes to you? Like, how does it work for you? And what I just described is a first time thing ever. So it's kind of exciting. I've never done it like that before. This is like a first time for me, how it's working for that band, but how has it worked for you in recent times?
That's so cool that you were able to basically put up the mission on the whiteboard, let's say, and then go, all right, I'm going to piece by piece find something that fits in this map that I've made for myself ahead of time, and like retroactively putting that all together. That's an amazing different way of processing it. But thanks for asking about our process. Yeah, usually song by song, bit by bit, until there's a larger vision going on. I'm not thinking about it as a whole too terribly much. Usually the song will come from like a concept that I'm trying to work on. Like I'm writing new music for Detach right now, and one of them is a rhythm. Just I've been fiddling around with that on drums for I don't even know how many years, my man. Like that has just been a can kicking around inside my head for a long time. And I finally found a place for it to live. And I went, okay, I got to pull this thread or else this idea is going to escape me again. And I can't go another year having that lording over me. Sometimes I find ideas really rude and inconvenient, and they just show up when they want and they disappear when they want. And it's like, hey, I'm here now. You got to deal with me. Or maybe I'll leave forever. Maybe I'll see you in 5 years. You don't know, and I won't tell you.
Yeah, it's important to go grab the guitar when that happens. I was in bed the other morning, and I thought of a really good song, and I was like, I'll remember it. And then I didn't. And I was like, man. But the other day, I was heading to memory entry band practice. I hit the button for the Uber to go to the practice space, and then a riff came to my head. And I was like, all right, I don't care if the guy leaves. I gotta do it. So I ran and picked up the guitar and recorded it. And the Uber canceled. See, it was fate. And then I got the riff, I recorded it, and I think it's going to be a song now. So when you get that flash, you got to like grab it, and then and I don't know, do you like record in voice notes at all? I'll record a bunch of riffs and voice notes in the phone, and then I can like hear the progression. I'm like, oh, that sucks. Oh wait, that's better. Oh wait, that's better. Oh, there it is. Okay, there's the song.
Yes, the map of Keith building up to the riff. Totally, dude. That's such a cool process, man. And I'm glad that you had the tools out and available for when inspiration hit you. You could just pick it up and capture it. That's so essential. For this band, I don't really work that way. For other bands, yeah. Because usually things are developing in the rehearsal room. Even if someone brings an idea in for everyone to work on, like in Husbandry or in Semaphore, a lot of the times whoever is writing will bring in something, usually a full song or like half a song or something, and play it for everyone, and we'll learn it, and then we'll begin the process of pulling it apart and putting it back together. And that iterative generating process we'll document with the phone and record and listen. And I've really been trying to push, and I'm glad it's being received because it's a very helpful process. Push the whatever we just figured out, record it, and then listen to it right away, and not put it into a folder and forget about it. Just have the most immediate feedback that you can. It's just like as if you were writing the record in the studio and you could just hit playback.
Yeah, there needs to be one person who actually listens to the recordings, and I am not that person, but thankfully there's someone in the band who actually does it. And then, I trust the guys in my band, so they'll be like, no, this was better on the recording, or no, let's try this. So then I'll listen to them. But yeah, I agree with you that being in the space and pulling the song apart and putting it back together, I think that's how you really perfect it. The arrangement, making everything perfect, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and the bands that I'm in they're on a spectrum of that process. DTI doesn't really have that process at all. Husbandry has that process a little more. Semaphore much more. Fluoride, that's all there is, really.
Yeah, Fluoride, another band I just heard recently of yours that I love. I was listening to Disentanglement, the LP. Super heavy, grindy, power violence. Can we say power violence? I saw that in the Bandcamp tags. I don't want to mislabel any genres here.
Yeah, I think that's definitely in there. I mean, I don't know where the line between PV and grind is very distinguishable. I think it's a very blurry kind of border. This is the where does Long Island begin and end bit from the beginning, coming all the way back around. But yeah, man, Fluoride is an amazing force of music. And we've been laying low a little bit for a little while, but we're all still juiced about playing and being the band and writing. And so it's just a slow process, and we're still chugging along. We're still doing it.
So there will be more.
Yeah. Rick and I have written some more songs. They're just slumbering. They're out. They're going to be out there though.
We're hibernating right now. When's the last time you guys played?
We played in September. Yeah. So, not like a million years ago or anything, but we're on track to play once or twice a year for the last few years. That's just kind of been the pace of the band. People are moving, people are in school, they're in it, or, things are just, there's a lot of life, good, positive things happening over there. So yeah, the band is there. It's just in a different kind of state right now.
Right. And Semaphore, everyone out there, if you haven't heard it, definitely check it out. I Need a Reason to Stay. The LP just came out in 2023. That's the latest one. But if you like shoegaze, alt type music, which I love and listen to a lot of, you'll love Semaphore. I was supposed to play with them when I was in the Darling Fire 2 years ago. Yeah, I think
That's
summer of 2023, fall of 2023. I can't remember when those gigs were that we had booked. Were you in the band at that point?
Absolutely.
Yeah. How long have you been in that band?
I think I joined in 2018 or 2017. It's funny because Jay and Sadhu, who play guitar in Detach the Islands, also play guitar and sing in Semaphore. Semaphore was originally Sadhu's solo project in much the same way that Detach the Islands is the way that I write everything. He was writing everything, and it was just kind of like, that was what he was doing. And then he needed a sub drummer for a show, so I subbed in. And then he said, all right, for the next show, I actually need a sub guitarist too. And I said, Jay, my man, get in here. Because Jay was playing at Detach the Islands with me already at the time. So then the three of us played a show. And then Jay's band, Juan Bond, that Sadhu is also in, needed a guitarist. So Sid did that. And then we said, all right, why don't we just all be in each other's bands and just like pull the string and have it all click into place all at once. And then all of a sudden there was like a little incestuous triangle that had formed.
Yeah. Because I remember Semaphore being like, I think he was just solo at one point, or maybe I can't remember. But then I saw him on Instagram a lot because he was interviewing bands, and then I would see him at shows a lot. Like he's at a lot of the same shows I go to, so I recognized him.
Definitely. Yeah, I think the first couple of EPs and the first Semaphore full length, that's Sadhu playing every instrument. And then there's an EP in 2019 where that's officially like the full band is happening on that. And then Nico joined on bass shortly thereafter that EP came out. So then our full current lineup is on I Need a Reason to Stay and the other little like covers we've sprinkled in before and after that.
And then Heavenview, you write solo electronic music as well, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes. How long have you been doing that for?
I think the first album came out in 2018, but I had been doing it in some way, shape, or form for years before then. That even before Detach the Islands, that was really my first foray into writing music, was electronic music. And Heavenview slowly came into focus by that was like my playground to just totally mess around, do anything in that world. And it's really been a fun sandbox to explore and put ideas into and get to do a lot of fun sound design and some sampling and mess around with drum machines and be, all in the box in there.
Yeah, there's endless possibilities in that world because I was listening to some of it, and sometimes it was like a more aggressive and drum heavy, sometimes more chill and ambient. But I saw the list of influences, and it's like, if you like Boards of Canada, you'll like this. And I was like, hey, I do, and I do.
Hell yeah. Huge influence on me. Not only just for Heavenview, but just for music in general, there's nothing really that sounds like that project. And
No.
when you try to sound like them, you end up aping them. So
Yeah. It's a very specific thing. Just the aesthetic, the way they sound, and and you'll always hear people be like, "Oh, I bought like 10 analog synths from like the 60s," and it's like, all right, but you're not going to be Boards of Canada, so just stop.
yeah, dude, they have that thing that only they know how to channel, and
Right.
it's amazing. And
Right.
even though they haven't come out with music in years, I go back to it all the time and find something new. Like there's another voice counting in the background that I didn't hear before. Like, how'd they sneak it in?
Yeah, when was the last one? 2012, 15, somewhere around there? I can't remember.
About then, I think, 2012, 2013, because
Somewhere in there. Yeah.
Tomorrow's Harvest. And I was big on Sputnik Music at the time. I was really deep in that website, like getting a lot of music from there. And I remember reading a review for the album, I think before I'd even listened to it, and it said, "Music for a Dead World." And I was like, oh, man, this is so epic. So cool.
I love that. Yeah. A friend of mine turned me on to them a long time ago. In like 2000, 2001. I remember getting Gio Gotti.
Damn.
And there's like a, I think it's track 2 that has that like kind of harsh repeating drum beat with the kind of haunting melodic voice behind it. And I just remember getting high back in the day and listening to that and being like, whoa, this is true. I think that's the first thing I ever bought off of Amazon.com was Boards of Canada CDs. Gio Gotti and
incredible.
What's the one that everyone likes with Roy G. Biv on it? With the
Music Has the Right to Children.
That one, yeah. I bought those 2 and then like one other one, I think. Great stuff.
Yeah, man. Wow, that's a win for Amazon that the first thing you got on there was Gio Gotti. That's amazing.
What better purchase? Way
Truly.
Cooler than Amazon Basics basketball or something like that.
I think Gio Gotti was the first thing I heard from them too. When I was in college and realizing that electronic music and synthesis and film sound design was really what I wanted to get into, I had a friend who went, "All right, you need to listen to this." And he gave me that album. And I think I just went into like a catatonic state after hearing it.
So what is your, in the world of music, creating, playing, all that stuff, what do you want to do? What do you want to accomplish? And is there things going on that you haven't talked about in this conversation yet that you want to get out there?
I think I want music to take me around the world. And that's maybe my biggest dream and goal for music, is to have it bring me to physical places and emotional and mental places that I've never been before. And I'm very lucky and very grateful that it keeps doing that. I have my tribulations with it and moments of doubt, but push through those, and music continues to reward the faith and devotion. I want to keep writing music, and I want to keep playing drums. Drums, I think, really saved me from a lot of things. It was something very stabilizing and emotionally regulating in my life. And when I'm really feeling out of sorts, it's usually because I haven't played or listened to something that will really touch me in a deep way in a while. And then I reconnect with that thing and go, it's like I hadn't drank water in too long. Just like rehabilitates me. And it's very apparent when that happens. So yeah, I'm very grateful that I can have that in my life, because I don't really know where I'd be without it. It's really been the North Star for a lot of the decisions I've made. And a friend, I don't know if they meant to say this at me or to me, but they like cut me in half with it. And they said, when music is your religion, you bow to that motherfucker. And it was like a bell rung inside my head. I was like, that, man, I'm going to go to a mountain and think about that for a long time.
I like that. Yeah. Yeah, I'm on the same page as you. I want to do more music, and I hope that it takes me places, whether that be new venues, new states, new countries, whatever. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, man. And new relationships. Without music, there are so many people in my life that I not only would not have met, but that I wouldn't be able to stay attached to, at least in the same way. Detach the Islands is a very good example of this, because not only did I start the group to have this vehicle for expression for myself, but also to bring together people that I really wanted to spend time with, and that maybe it would be difficult to get everybody together all at the same time on a regular basis if there wasn't this thing to rally them with.
Exactly. That it's harder as we get older, and if it weren't for bands and band practice, I wouldn't do as much, because I don't like to just go hang out. But if it's like, oh, we're starting a band, oh, we're playing a show, oh, we're going to a show, all right, let's go. I can do that.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, band practice keeps friendships alive. A firm believer of that. It's so true.
It really does. Well, Emmett, this has been great. All right, I encourage everyone out there to check out Detach the Islands, Husbandry, Semaphore, Fluoride, and Heavenview. If you have not heard these bands, everyone out there, you have a lot of homework to do. So let's get on it. And Emmett, it's been great meeting you and playing with you, and let's do it again.
Likewise, Keith. It was a real pleasure, man. Thank you so much.